Hello, welcome back to another little video of me ranking all the Cinderella films leading up to my favourite. I'm going to be starting from my bottom, my least favourite, and working my way up to my favourites. Obviously, this is my opinion and my opinion only, so please feel free to tell me your versions of what you would think of the Cinderella rankings in the comments below if you like. But without making this video too long, let's dive straight into this, shall we? Now, coming in at the bottom is Cinderella 2. The thing that put this film at the bottom for me, as it wasn't really a film, it was more of just a film with three short stories in it that feel completely separate and isolated compared to the rest of the films. Also, we have the iconic classic that we go straight into this, and then when we go into the third film, it just feels like out of those three films, the second just feels completely detached, like it never happened almost, which is why I've ranked that at the bottom. And to give it a bit more of a ranking and definition, I'm going to even rank the individual stories. So, coming in drop dead bottom is the second story where Jacques wishes to be a human. It was cool to have like a mini episode centered around the mice and sort of plays into the whole be careful what you wish for, as it might not be what you truly want. Thankfully, the wish was cast by a good fairy godmother, which was more than happy to undo the wish when Jack realised at the end he preferred being a mouse. Unfortunately, Cinderella 2 is one of those films I think is just solely aimed for the kids. It's not made for like everyone in mind, which is cool. I mean, I bet a lot of kids probably love this one. Maybe they didn't. Who knows? It just felt like it was just way too silly. I mean, surely at one point you'd think Jack would realise that he's a big human and doesn't need to keep running away and being scared of a cat to the extent he did. Now, coming in at fifth place, we have the very first story of Cinderella 2, and that is the Cinderella learning to be a princess, which was a kind of fun episode to her learning how to be a princess. And I just remember during this part of the reaction, I thought it was still a film at this point. So I'm thinking, when's the big bad coming in? Is it going to be the stepmother? Is it going to be someone else? Is it going to be the governess that's helping Cinderella learn everything she needs to learn about being a princess? I was wondering when something was going to happen. And anyway, it was a lovely story, but there just wasn't really much to it other than just obviously Cinderella learning to be a princess according to tradition, up against her wanting to make some welcome new changes, which turned out that the king loved in the end. Really great. And then in fourth place, again, Cinderella 2 would be the last story, where Anastasia finds love. She breaks away from her stepmother and finds true love within a baker's boy rather than trying to marry for gain, which is what her stepmother wanted of her. With Cinderella's help, she is able to achieve that, and it just showed some beautiful sibling bonding between Cinderella and Anastasia. It was beautiful. I loved it. It's the only thing was it's just a short story. It wasn't part of a grand movie. It was just a short story, so it's a bit hard to completely love this higher up than any of the other Cinderella movies, just because it was a short story. Doesn't mean I didn't dislike it. It just was just short. Now, coming in third place is where I'm probably going to get quite a bit of hate. Is the original Cinderella story. Now, don't get me wrong. This was a beautiful story, and it isn't. This is a beautifully old classic story, and I just feel like it's a story that's been repeated so many times, time and again, with one very big contradicting fact of like she lost her glass slipper, and their whole logic to try and find the princess was to try the glass slipper onto everyone to see who it fit. Yes, granted, size 4.5 is such a small size, but there are going to be other women out there that fit that size. And given the era that this film was made and the era that it's aimed, that it was set in, this is an era that minimum age wasn't really a thing. So that 4.5 size slipper would have fit quite a lot of the younger women. Is the future king supposed to take all these young minors as his princess? Not really great, is it? Yes, I know we can all put it down to magical slippers being only letting Cinderella's foot slide inside it. Yes, we could put it down to that kind of magic. But considering this is the same story that's been told so many times, I've seen so many different versions of it prior to this, I think it's just so familiar and I've seen it all before. Yes, I did love it, and one of the things I did love about all the music and songs was that Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. I loved it. It was brilliant. But at the end of the day, it's still a beautiful classic, and I loved it. Let's move on to second place, which is where another surprise and one might come into you guys. I ranked the live action in second place. Yes, the live action isn't first place for me. And I welcome the live action because obviously it's the same story again. Cinderella goes to the ball with a magical spell that wears off at midnight. She loses her slipper. But the thing I liked about it is all the changes they made helped improve the story. It gave more explanation to things, it gave more backstory, and it just helped give a lot of the unanswered questions that obviously you didn't mind skipping because it was a cartoon for kids. But considering this is now a live action aimed at all audiences, it just gave a lot of those unanswered questions about a bit more of a clue to why the stepmother's so evil and sinister towards Cinderella. With her whole gain of just wanting to just better herself and her two daughters by trying to force Cinderella to give them more power. The sinister twist of her finding the spare glass slipper and smashing that one instead of the one that is in the guard's possession. I loved all these little changes and twists. I feel like it made the film and the story a better story for it, which is why I marginally ranked it above the classic cartoon. Yes, the classic songs were a miss, but I feel like it made up for it in all the extra backstory with her meeting the prince prior to the ball, hence for why his extra want and desire to meet her again, as the ball wasn't the first time he met her, that's the second time. So I love the backstory, and that's what gave the live action a slight win over the classic. In first place is Cinderella 3. The villain almost won and could have won if they were just a bit clever, but oh my god, the third film showed off how sinister the stepmother can truly be, taking revenge for nothing. Cinderella did nothing wrong other than meet someone and fall in love with them, and you're punishing her for that when all you used her as was a slave prior to that, and all she wanted to do is keep her slave and marry her sisters off, even if it meant it was a forced marriage without the prince's consent. And another factor that I liked about it, it wasn't just a case of that the villains could almost won and they were having their way, and you were left the whole time not knowing how it's going to turn out. Just when you think it's just going to be a typical prince finds the princess and they live happily ever after like they did in Snow White and the original Cinderella, the prince actually gets on his horse and goes out on a mission to try and save the day. The prince actually goes and finds Cinderella and stops her from being deported. He brings her back to the castle just for this stepmother to cast another plan of swapping bodies or giving Anastasia Cinderella's a body that looked like Cinderella's before sending Cinderella on her way again. Cinderella showed herself triumphant as well by breaking free of the spell and coming back to rescue the prince from his grim fate. So that's another thing that I did love, is that it wasn't just the prince being a hero for a change, compared to him just showing up and winning the love. He went and was a hero. Then he needed saving himself from Cinderella. And what would you have him know? Just before the I do's get said, Anastasia finds her heart and decides to side with Cinderella, revealing the evil plan of the stepmother. And just as she sides with Cinderella and the stepmother's going to take her evil vengeance out on the pair of them, the prince again jumps in and saves the day by reflecting the spell back at the stepmother. Cinderella and both the prince were heroes in this one, and Anastasia showed a great heart and great courage, which is why I put this one at my top. So I hope you guys enjoyed this short ranking of the Cinderella films. So I hope you guys enjoyed this ranking, as I just wanted to slip in as something little until next week when I dive into my Jaws reaction for its 20th anniversary. So until next time, I'll see you guys then. Bye!